Modern warfare was supposed to be dominated by tanks, missiles, drones, and advanced electronic systems. Yet on the battlefields of eastern Ukraine, a surprising sight began appearing with increasing frequency. Groups of Russian troops mounted on motorcycles racing toward enemy positions across open terrain. To many observers, the tactic seemed almost an anachronism, a throwback to a much earlier era of warfare. Videos circulating online showed assault teams riding dirt bikes and lightweight motorcycles across fields, roads, and damaged landscapes scarred by months of fighting. The goal was simple: move faster than the enemy could react. Russian commanders faced a battlefield unlike any seen in previous major conflicts. Drones hovered overhead day and night. Artillery could be directed onto targets within minutes. Armored vehicles often became prime targets long before they reached their objective. In response, motorcycle assault groups emerged as an attempt to restore battlefield mobility. But in many cases, these assaults did not go as planned. Instead of achieving breakthrough victories, numerous motorcycle attack formations found themselves detected, tracked, and neutralized one by one before reaching their objectives. The very speed that made motorcycles attractive often became irrelevant against an enemy that could see nearly everything. Traditional armored assaults had become increasingly expensive and dangerous. Tanks and infantry fighting vehicles faced constant threats from anti-tank guided missiles, artillery, loitering munitions, and FPV drones. Every advance carried significant risk. A dirt bike costs only a fraction of an armored personnel carrier. It requires less fuel, less maintenance, and can move through terrain that might slow heavier vehicles. The theory was straightforward. If a group of soldiers could cross dangerous terrain in a matter of minutes rather than hours, they might avoid artillery fire and overwhelm defensive positions before defenders could organize an effective response. The battlefield, however, had other ideas. No military innovation exists in isolation. Motorcycles entered a battlefield already dominated by drones. Reconnaissance drones constantly searched for movement behind the front lines. Some operated at high altitudes, scanning large areas. Others flew low enough to identify individual vehicles and personnel. A motorcycle assault force moving at high speed is still visible. In fact, large groups often generated dust trails that could be spotted from considerable distances. Once detected, the motorcycles effectively became moving targets. Drone operators could monitor their route, estimate their destination, and relay information to artillery units or FPV drone teams. What might have been a surprise attack in previous wars often became a highly visible approach march in the age of persistent aerial surveillance. One of the recurring problems faced by motorcycle assault groups was that speed frequently carried them directly into prepared defensive fire. Military planners often speak about engagement areas, locations where defenders concentrate firepower against advancing forces. In many documented engagements, motorcycle formations crossed open terrain only to enter areas already covered by machine guns, mortars, artillery, and drone operators. The riders had little protection. Unlike soldiers inside armored personnel carriers, motorcycle troops were completely exposed. A burst of machine gun fire could disable a rider. Artillery fragments could scatter an assault formation. FPV drones could pursue targets individually. Once momentum was lost, the situation often deteriorated rapidly. The motorcycles that had provided mobility moments earlier became scattered across the battlefield as riders sought cover wherever they could find it. If there was one weapon system that repeatedly undermined motorcycle assaults, it was the FPV drone. The rise of inexpensive attack drones has transformed combat. Unlike artillery shells fired at predicted locations, FPV drones can actively pursue moving targets. Operators can adjust their flight path in real time and strike vehicles, equipment, or personnel with remarkable accuracy. Motorcycles are particularly vulnerable. They lack armor. They have limited defensive capabilities. A drone operator observing an approaching assault group can prioritize targets and engage them individually. In numerous battlefield recordings, riders attempting to reach forward positions were intercepted before arriving at their objective. Others were forced to abandon their vehicles after drones struck nearby. The result was often a gradual breakdown of the assault. Instead of one cohesive attack force, defenders faced isolated groups arriving at different times and from different directions. This made them easier to defeat. One of the most important lessons from these operations is that mobility and survivability are not the same thing. Motorcycles unquestionably increased movement speed, but speed alone could not solve the fundamental problems of modern combat. Motorcycles addressed only one of these requirements. Even when assault teams successfully reached enemy positions, they often lacked the heavy weapons needed to sustain the attack. Without armored support, holding captured ground became difficult. Without rapid reinforcement, gains could quickly disappear. The motorcycle delivered the soldier to the fight. It did not guarantee success once the fight began. Large assault formations often create strength through concentration. Motorcycle attacks frequently had the opposite effect. As riders maneuvered across uneven terrain, formations stretched out. Some motorcycles moved faster than others. Obstacles forced route changes. Enemy fire disrupted coordination. What began as a mass assault often became a collection of small groups. Defenders exploited this fragmentation. Drone operators could focus on individual riders. Artillery could target clusters of troops. Machine gun positions could engage attackers approaching from predictable directions. The attackers lost the advantages of mass while retaining the vulnerabilities of light infantry. Instead of confronting a unified force, defenders frequently encountered isolated elements arriving sequentially. In military terms, the assault force became piecemeal, and piecemealed forces are rarely successful against prepared defenses. The difficulties encountered by motorcycle units reveal several broader truths about modern warfare. First, battlefield transparency has fundamentally changed offensive operations. In previous conflicts, speed could compensate for limited protection. Today, constant surveillance means attackers are often observed long before reaching their objectives. Second, low-cost mobility cannot fully replace armored protection. Motorcycles may be inexpensive and agile, but they cannot shield riders from artillery fragments, machine gun fire, or explosive drones. Third, drones have become central to battlefield decision-making. Whether conducting reconnaissance or delivering direct attacks, drones increasingly shape the success or failure of offensive operations. Military organizations learn from successes and failures alike. Tactics evolve, equipment changes, countermeasures emerge. The motorcycle assault represents one chapter in a larger story of battlefield innovation and adaptation. Russian motorcycle assault tactics emerged from a genuine operational challenge: how to move troops across one of the most heavily observed battlefields in modern history. The idea contained a certain logic. Fast-moving motorcycles could reduce transit time, disperse troops, and avoid some of the vulnerabilities associated with larger vehicles. Yet many large-scale assaults demonstrated the limits of that approach. Persistent surveillance, FPV drones, artillery coordination, minefields, and defensive fire repeatedly disrupted attacking formations. What began as rapid advances often slowed, fragmented, and ultimately stalled under pressure. The result was a series of operations in which speed alone proved insufficient. Motorcycle units could race toward the front line, but once detected, they often faced a battlefield designed to isolate and defeat attackers before they could achieve a breakthrough. In the end, the motorcycle assault became a powerful illustration of a central lesson of modern warfare. Moving faster matters, but surviving the journey matters even more.